there's other options for Bud, and that's exactly what we're going to get into now, which is the perfect segue. That's why we went to school for this, you guys. By the way, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel grow. Also follow us on our social media platforms at TheMandatory TKO. Let's get right into it. Terence Bud Crawford and Teofimo Lopez are going at it on social media. Teofimo Lopez was kind of the one that called him out first. And Bud, man, he had quite the quotes in this one. One of them, quote, "Hey, Teofimo Lopez, now real shit. Good luck in your fight. Focus on him because he can fight. And I don't want you to look bad worrying about me when you got other problems on your hands." End quote. Another one. This is probably my favorite one. Teofimo Lopez, your little bitch ass better worry about them little guys on your ass down there in your weight class. End quote. He goes again, quote, "It's crazy. Every time I see your hoe ass, you don't even look my way. But when you in front of a camera, you got so much to say. You pussy." End quote. This is great for social media. They're definitely building a fight. And these are two guys that know how to build a fight. You know, I know Bud's gotten the knock that he doesn't know how to sell a fight, or he, like, a lot of people don't buy him for pay-per-views. But after that performance against Spence and all the smack that he's talking right now, we know Teo can sell a fight. Bryan, how good is this for boxing, and do you see this fight happening?
I'll say this: when it comes to this little rivalry, right? If we're gonna call it that, to me, this is probably the opponent I would actually want to see Terence Crawford fight the most. Like, I could actually make a case this is probably the best option for him, even including Errol Spence in the rematch, because I actually think because Terence Crawford says he's about money fights now. Teofimo Lopez seems like a big money fight, because if you're looking at Terence Crawford's options, realistically, who would they be? Jaron Boots Ennis is probably one of them, and it doesn't seem like he's going to do that fight. They even went back and forth a little bit. He said that he had a couple. Terence Crawford said that Jaron Ennis, too many pronouns, had a couple opportunities to fight Terence Crawford, which did not happen. And Jaron Boots Ennis says signed a contract. He'll sign the contract if he sent the contract. So, paraphrasing, but this is basically what was going on Twitter. Boxers just had time this week. Again, slow start to the year for the sport. So basically, we have everyone else sort of like, oh, is he going to fight Terence Crawford? Is he going to fight Jermell Charlo next? Jermell Charlo just got arrested, so he's got to kind of work that out, and we'll see what happens with him legally in the ring. He also didn't have an inspiring performance against Canelo Alvarez, so while I think that fight will be a draw, I think people are going to look into that and be like, hey, Terence Crawford's probably going to beat his ass too. And I think Terence Crawford will be a big betting favorite if that fight were to go down. You look at Canelo Alvarez, I just think they're too far apart in weight class. Like, I'll see it, but I don't know, like, if that's the option I want the most, is somebody who's 168 versus somebody who's 147. Terence Crawford, bigger 147 than people think, as he demonstrated in the Errol Spence fight. However, that's just a big leap for me, right? Teofimo Lopez, who I think we can both acknowledge, yeah, he's probably going to be a welterweight at some point. And while we would like to see him continue at 140, because there are some fights to be made there. We've talked about Subriel Matias, potentially Ryan Garcia, potentially Devin Haney, obviously being the big one. I think if Teofimo Lopez is going to fight Terence Crawford, that's a super captivating fight. It's a fight that can make a lot of money, which is what they both are sort of wanting right now, coming out of both of their sort of business situations. And on top of that, I think I wouldn't call it a 50-50 fight because Terence Crawford is going to be the favorite, but I think Teofimo Lopez has a better chance than most guys against Terence Crawford. I don't think he wins that fight, but I think he can put up a very, very compelling performance that I think, Terence Crawford would have some, and I wouldn't say trouble, but I think Terence Crawford would have some interesting sort of challenges navigating that, which I think he'll figure out, and we can get to that if they actually fight. But Teofimo Lopez, I think he can be the number one guy for Terence Crawford right now to fight, if you're looking at just purely a financial standpoint and just a standpoint of making an interesting fight.
Yeah, I don't think this fight is going to happen. Not because it doesn't make sense business-wise.
Which is a different point, by the way.
Yeah, business-wise, definitely. I think if you're a viewer at home, if you're a boxing fan, yeah, you love a fight like this because it's kind of a fantasy fight. But it's also Teofimo Lopez moving up in weight class. And I know Bud also said that he essentially would want to move up to 154 at one point as well, wanting to fight Charlo. Of course, Charlo's dealing with those issues. I just don't see this fight happening. I think it's a whole bunch of hoopla and it's a whole bunch of talk, which is what we always get in boxing, right? He's calling out Bud, why not? Right. And another thing is, I think Teofimo has to handle business at 140 because there's still a lot of fights to make where he can make tons of money. And I think instead of focusing on Bud, it's like, yeah, Bud's right. Focus on your weight class, the weight class down there. Because think about it. Teofimo Lopez jumped to this weight class. His first fight was against Pedro Campa, right? That wasn't too long ago. And so you're talking about jumping up to welterweight. Unless, what if Bud wants to fight at 154? Then you're going to fight at 154? Like, it's a possibility. Because Bud has to cut weight. It's hard for him to get down to 147 as well. Not as hard as it's been for Spence, but he's the A side. He's going to be the one calling the shots for this one. So I think Teofimo Lopez, he's really good at this. He's really good at talking smack. But I think there's a bigger fight that maybe doesn't have the potential draw, but it's still a really good fight, is him and Devin Haney, him and Ryan Garcia. If him and Ryan Garcia fought, that's a massive fight. He'd make millions of dollars. And we know what a draw he is, Ryan Garcia. So I think there's still some really good fights for Teofimo Lopez to make at 140. And he's going up against a guy that's already established as a GOAT. Look how many fights that Bud Crawford has. Like, this is kind of ridiculous. It's not the same as Jake Paul calling out Mayweather or something like that, or something ridiculous, right? Like, Teofimo Lopez is that guy. And to be perfectly honest, I think he has one of the best resumes in boxing. He's not afraid to fight anybody. And you got to give Teofimo Lopez props on that. I just don't think this fight is going to happen. And I hate talking about it because I don't think it's going to happen this year. I actually like talking more fantasy and talking about Bud and Canelo because that's a fight where I'm like, whoa, I think this could possibly happen because they're two of the best of this era. I think you could argue that they're two of the best of this era. But you're right. They're very far away in weight. One fight that I think could be interesting where I think Bud could make a lot of money is him and Tim Tszyu at 154. You make the fight down in Australia. I think it's going to be a draw. And I think that's an interesting fight to make at 154.
He would never do that.
Of course, Tim Tszyu has other plans, right?
Yeah.
Terence Crawford's
not go. I don't think Terence Crawford's going to Australia either. I don't think he's going to give up his A side for Tim Tszyu.
No, but I think it's about if it's about the money, right?
I don't think Tim Tszyu going to be a bigger draw in a fight with Teofimo Lopez. Terence Crawford and Teofimo Lopez, one of the only true pay-per-view fights you could make, I feel.
No, I'm not saying that it's not a big draw. What I'm saying is I see that more likely to happen at 154 than Teofimo Lopez and Bud Crawford. Like, I just don't see that fight happening. But if we're taking a look at 154, if Bud's going to fight at 154 and Charlo's got all these issues that he's dealing with the law, then, hey, like, let me take a look at that 154 class. Tim Tszyu is probably the other best name on there at 154. Let's take a look at 154. Like, who would you say is the best?
Not
like
a
Charles.
Great weight class.
It's not. Like, if we're taking a look at names and we want to make a good fight, Tim Tszyu is the next name at 154 that we would look at. It's an easier fight to make. Bud wants to come up to 154. This stupid stuff with him and Teofimo Lopez isn't going to happen this year. It's a bunch of bullshit that we see in boxing all the time, but we hop on it as fans. And I don't know. I like it. I think it's entertaining, but I think that's all it is. And I think there's better fights for Teo at 140 because I don't think this fight is going to happen because Bud's not going to give up his A side.
I don't think the casual fans will care about Terence Crawford versus Tim Tszyu like that. And I think if Terence Crawford is trying to make the big money fights on the way out the door, I think for him it's just more about money than it is about weight class.
Think about how much George Kambosos made against Devin Haney.
Sure.
Right. And so this is Tim Tszyu and Bud Crawford. And like, no offense to Devin Haney, but he's not a guy that draws a lot of numbers. He's never been. People think he's boring. Like George Kambosos did that in Australia.
That's
Tim Tszyu, the star of Tim Tszyu is way, and I think about his dad and everything. The star of Tim Tszyu is way bigger than George Kambosos Jr. Like, no disrespect to him. But like in Australia and like knowing like what boxing looks like there and how the fans go hard for boxing, like they would eat that fight up. He would make tons of money down there. No, but I'm talking about it. I'm talking about in the business sense, though, that Bud would still make a lot of money there. It is a money fight.
I think I wonder if he'd perceive it that way because I'm not positive he would. And the George Kambosos thing is different because Devin Haney was chasing Undisputed and George Kambosos had the belts because he beat Teofimo Lopez. And I think here, I don't think Terence Crawford's chasing titles as much as he's just chasing the biggest fights on the way out the door, however many 2, 3, whatever 5 he has left. I don't know. I don't even know if it's 5. Would he use one of those on Tim Tszyu? I don't know. I'd rather him, me personally, and I think other people would agree with this. I'd rather see him fight. If you're gonna fight somebody, fight Jaron Ennis.
That's what everyone wants.
If you're not gonna
That's what
fight
everyone
Teofimo
wants.
Lopez, like,
Yeah.
because I think if you're looking at
He's not fighting Teo. It's not happening. Like, it's not happening. Like, it's Bud is gonna move up to 154. He said he was gonna move up. Like, so unless Teofimo Lopez decides that he's gonna jump from 140, jump up 2 weight classes and pull a Charlo, then maybe. But this shit's not gonna happen this year.
No, I know that, but Teofimo Lopez being the wild card that he is, would you really count him out of making that decision?
Like, I think I would. I think I would count out.
Dude could be a little off the wall. Like, I wouldn't. I think he's.
I think Bud's right. I think he should focus on Jermaine Ortiz. It's not an easy fight. Like, he should focus on that. I think. Listen, I think Teo is one of these guys that's been rumored to fight a lot of guys, and he says he wants to fight a lot of guys, but those fights don't end up happening. Why haven't we seen him and Devin Haney? Why haven't we seen him and Ryan Garcia? It's always an issue. You don't think this negotiation with him and Bud would be ridiculous? It would be ridiculous. Look how long it took us to get Bud and Spence. We're not getting Teofimo Lopez and Bud Crawford. Not this year.
You're making it sound like Teofimo Lopez has this lightweight resume. Like, in his first defense after winning against Richard Comey, he fought Vasily Lomachenko.
No, he's got names. He's got names on his resume. I said he has one of the best resumes. I said that on this episode. Not knocking his resume, but at the same time, it's like, I just don't see that fight happening. Right? He's the one who called out Lomachenko. When was Loma ever been like, yo, I'm gonna duck this dude? Loma's out there. I don't know what they're using Loma as now, but
he's probably gonna fight George Kambosos, actually. So.
Yeah, that's a fight that he'll win. Like, let's be serious, it's Loma. But I just mean in the sense that I don't see the fight happening. Like, I don't see Teo. Teo will talk all he wants. It's like Arnold Barbosa said on our show. You can go check it out. Regis Prograis said on our show. You can go check it out. That Teo talks a lot, but when it comes down to it, like, his dad's not going to let him do that. That's what Regis said on our show. Like,
so to put a bow on this segment and this episode, because we'll end it here. If you had to pick, like, and you can't pick Errol Spence. Let's say Errol Spence, like, it's taking however many months to recover. Terence Crawford takes a fight in the meantime. And we know the most likely scenario is that Terence Crawford just waits and fights Errol Spence whenever Errol Spence is ready, call it the summer. But let's say Terence Crawford has another fight before that. Who is the one person you would want to see him fight the most?
Jaron Boots Ennis.
That's my answer also. But after him is probably Teofimo Lopez after this.
If we're talking like dream fights, because I think for me as a boxing fan, because I'm so jaded as a boxing fan, like, think about it. Like, I've cursed on this episode the most than I have because I think this is so ridiculous. Like, I didn't even want to talk about it because it's so stupid. But like,
and I made you do it.
For me, it's just like, if we're talking dream fights, because I don't think Teo moves up 2 weight classes to fight Bud. Why would he do that? Other than money. But Teo, like, I know he wants to do payday.
Bud would do it. You don't think Bud would do it at welterweight?
I don't think so, because he wants to move up to 154. Like, that's always been the talk. The thing about it is that I know Teofimo acts like he doesn't care, but he cares. Like, that guy is a boxer. He cares about his records. He cares about his wins. Like, people can make it seem like it's just about money. No, Teofimo Lopez cares. He really, really cares. And so I don't think he's going to just jump up 2 weight classes and fight a guy like Bud, who right now arguably is pound for pound number 1. I think he can win a lot of fights at 140 and then move up. And then maybe we see him and Jaron Boots Ennis. Like, yo, there's good fights to make. Like, I think Teofimo Lopez can make, maybe I'm talking nerd fights, but if I'm taking a look at Bud, give me him and Canelo. Like, if we're talking dream fights, let them meet halfway. And I'll take that fight over him and Teofimo Lopez. I'd rather see Bud and Canelo because they're older. Teofimo Lopez is 26 years old, right? Yeah. Like Bud and Canelo are on their way out, maybe, right? Like, at one point they're gonna head out. So I'd rather get that fight. Like, what would you rather see? If Canelo and Bud could meet halfway, maybe they fight at 160. I don't know. Would you want?
I don't think Canelo's going any lower than that.
Canelo's not. No, he wouldn't. He'd make the fight.
I actually think it's probably more likely Terence Crawford just goes all the way up to 168.
And I don't think Terence would care. Yeah,
I don't think he cared. That's what I'm saying. I don't think he cared either.
He wants to smoke. He wants the big money fight. Like Bud would make that fight. It's Canelo
You know
wanting to
what?
come down.
You know what I want to see is if that.
Wait, hold on. Answer my question though. Would you
What was your
rather
question?
see
Yeah.
Canelo? Would you rather see Canelo and Bud or Canelo and Teofimo Lopez? If either of those fights could happen, which one are you picking?
You mean Bud and Teofimo Lopez?
Yeah, budding Teofimo Lopez. Oh yeah, no, Teo don't want to look it up. Okay,
You're adding
okay.
a 4th weight class.
Yeah, he's gonna go all the way on Teo. He's gonna gain mad weight. No, would you rather see Bud and Teo, or would you rather see Canelo and Bud? What if you had to pick between the two?
God, you
I don't.
can't you just can't not say Bud and Canelo. I just
That's what
think
I'm saying. It's
I
like a
don't.
dream fight. It's
I don't expect either one, first of all, but I don't expect that one because like I just think the weight class jump is outrageous. And I heard what Canelo said. Like he's like, yo, no one's gonna give me credit because I beat somebody fucking 3 weight classes underneath me. Like he didn't say it like that, but he's right though. He's not gonna get. I don't think he'd get a lot of credit for winning that fight. Now, the money would be just absurd.
It would be the
Like
fight. It would be the fight of the century. Like one of the fights of the
like,
century.
it
That's
would be
what they would peg it.
ridiculous.
It would be so good, like an American boxer versus a Mexican boxer. I'm getting chills. Like, think about
But
the storylines, like two of the greatest of this generation. Like that fight would be ridiculous if that ever got made. But remember what, like back in the day before Canelo and Triple G fought, man, Canelo's given us some good fights. He doesn't get credit for it. Even though I do believe Triple G, like, well, you know what I'm saying? Remember they were arguing about where to fight, like what weight class to fight, him
Oh, that's
and
right.
Gennady Golovkin, and I was like, yo, just fight at 160. They ended
Yeah.
up fighting eventually. So I just think that like that would be like the best fight of all time for me. So if we're talking fantasy, you know, that would be the fight that I'd want. So I want Bud to fight Boots first. I'd want Bud to fight Canelo second, and I also want to put Keith Thurman on a milk box. Where is he? Because Keith
Man,
Thurman was that dude one time. Come on, man! Like, where did he go?
he was supposed to fight. Oh God, who was he supposed to fight last year? Was it Stanionis for like the WBA title? And then the Herbert Ortiz thing happened, and then allegedly he was gonna. There was rumors about Keith Thurman and Boots Ennis, and he didn't want to fight Boots. And I don't know. I don't know
I
where
can
Keith
understand
Thurman
why
is,
he doesn't
but
want to fight Boots.
well, he should
Like,
now because Boots actually has a title. But now
yeah,
Keith Thurman has to again get back in the ring, return,
I has to have a
so we
tune-up
can
first.
see him. Yeah, it's just I don't know, man. But to put a bow on this
Oh
again,
yeah, and you know what? I would even see Bud fight Danny Garcia at 154.
sure,
That's a
yeah,
good fight. I would like that fight. They could do it in New York.
I don't know what. Please bring anything to New
Yeah,
York.
at the
God, for
Barclays or
God's sake.
something. They could do it.
We
They
we
could
do
do
have
it.
a fight coming to New York next month. Oshaki Foster's first title defense against Abraham Nova, which
I
is
think
not a
you
gimme
said you're
fight.
going. I think you said you're going.
I'm
to that
trying
fight.
to. We'll see if Top Rank lets me in the door. We should be fine for that. I also will have to get off work because I work that day, but I'll figure it out. But yeah, Terence Crawford. Listen, if Errol Spence is going to be a long wait, fight Boots Ennis. I think now would be a good time. I think there's money in that fight. I don't know to what degree, and I'm sure it's not as much as fighting, maybe a couple of the other guys we talked about, Canelo and Teofimo, and probably the Errol Spence rematch in particular. But I still think there's going to be money in that Boots Ennis fight, and it's a fight that I think a lot of people will be intrigued to see how Boots Ennis performs. Though I think Terence Crawford will win because I'd pick Terence Crawford to beat just about anybody, except I think a couple times about because the weight jump against Canelo, but I can still see myself talking. I can see myself just talking myself into, man, it's Terence Crawford, bro. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where we'll see if we get those fights. But here at the Mandatory, we want to know who you want to see Bud Crawford fight. Do you want to see him fight Teofimo Lopez? Is there somebody else at 147 that you want him to fight at 154? Who do you agree with? Do you think this fight will even go down? And how much do you enjoy the trash talk? Leave your comments below. Also follow us on our social media platforms at TheMandatory TKO. And if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, please do. Any final words, Bryan, before we get up and out of here?
yeah. Let us know what you think about all this stuff. And we will also have a betting segment, a prediction segment, because Artur Beterbiev is fighting this weekend. And it is the first big title defense that we're getting this year because he obviously has the light heavyweight titles. And he's fighting Callum Smith, who's not nobody. He's a former champion of super middleweight. So check that out after you're done with this.